Hey, what is going on, guys? This is DK back at you with another video here to break down the 3-game NFL playoff Sunday slate wildcard weekend. We have a pretty good slate, another millionaire maker as well. So we have a millionaire maker on Saturday, 2-game slate millionaire maker on Sunday. Should be fun. Playoff football, always enjoyable to watch, and hopefully it's a good DFS slate. So if you guys are a first-time viewer, again, I cover content for DFS as well as for Prize Picks. If you're looking for more in-depth content, you can check my Patreon linked down below. And then Prize Picks, they are the sponsor. They do have props up already for the weekend games. You can use the code DKDFS for 100% match up to $100. So that's a free $100 to play with on the site. Again, if you're not familiar, you build 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 player props and 1 up to 25 extra money. You can mix and match sports as well. So if you guys want to give it a try, again, make sure to use that code. And let's get into this video. Also, if you're playing the 2-game Saturday slate, I have a video breaking that one down, so make sure to check it out. But we'll start, let's go position by position again. So we'll start it off with the quarterbacks. And really quick, let's take a look at these Vegas odds. So Bills and Dolphins, 44.5 over under. The Bills are 10.5 point favorites. We have some uncertainty right now with the Dolphins. We don't know who's going to be playing at the quarterback position. I think if Tua plays, then the Dolphins have at least a fighting chance. Giants and Vikings, we got 48.5 over under. The Vikings are 3-point favorites. And the late game is the Ravens and the Bengals. Also some uncertainty about the status of, Lamar Jackson, 43.5 over under there. So top end quarterback, right now I think Josh Allen is probably your safest play. He's not injured and he has rushing upside and it's Josh Allen. So I'm not scared of Miami defensively at all. So I think he looks really good. I think he's, again, your safest spent quarterback. And sub 8K, can't go wrong with that. Joe Burrow at 6'9", doesn't really have the rushing upside, but this Bengals offense is definitely high powered. And I think it's actually going to be a boost to Joe Burrow if Lamar Jackson plays, because if it's Huntley, then, it's not as dynamic. The Ravens will probably try to ground and pound, slow the ball down, slow the game down a bit. If it's Lamar, I think this game has a better chance to shoot out. So I actually think Lamar Jackson being in helps Joe Burrow. He's a fine tournament play. You have, 3 guys you can stack him with, even 4 with Hayden Hurst. So Burrow, good GBP play. Lamar and Tua, again, we don't know their status. If Lamar plays and it's not limited, I like the price point quite a bit on him. Sub 7K Lamar Jackson for a guy that can go for 100 yards in the ground. It just depends, obviously, on, if he does play, is he going to be, is he going to be mobile enough, right? Is he going to be his old self, or is he going to be, kind of limited in that department? So, that's, again, we'll keep an eye on news and hopefully get some clarity on that before this weekend. And then Tua, again, it's not cleared yet. If he is out, I would assume that they go to Bridgewater. If Bridgewater can't go, then they got to go to Skylar Thompson, which would really hurt the Miami offense. That game was painful to watch. The Jets-Dolphins game, painful. All right, I do kind of like these cheap quarterbacks, though, in this Giants-Vikings game being played in the Dome, so don't have to worry about any weather, and the highest total game of the Sunday slate. And, so I like Kirk Cousins. I like his ceiling. You have a couple guys you can stack him with, obviously. They run a very condensed wide receiver target share. Like when Kirk Cousins is throwing the ball, it's going to Justin Jefferson, it's going to Adam Thielen, it's going to TJ Hawkinson, so I do like Cousins, and I do like Daniel Jones kind of as a contrarian play. He's a guy that has rushing upside. You saw 91 yards in the ground for Daniel Jones. So I think both quarterbacks are playable in both formats, in my opinion, in Kirk Cousins and in Daniel Jones. So, and no one's the quarterbacks, neither super pricey. So, yeah, I like those 2 cheap quarterbacks. And then, if Tua's out, I still like Bridgewater. I think I'd rather play Jones or Cousins. And kind of the same thing with Huntley. I think I'd rather play Jones or Cousins for a bit more. So, don't know if I'll be looking at the back quarterbacks if Tua and Lamar can't go. So let's talk about the running backs. And Saquon Barkley is 7'9". I think he's probably your safest bet as far as running backs go. He's basically a bell cow as long as they don't get completely blown out. He's a guy who should play majority of the game. He is involved in the passing game as well. So I like Saquon. I like the matchup for him. Again, my only concern is the Vikings just run away with this and Saquon kind of get phased out, in the second half. But as long as the game is somewhat competitive, I think Saquon is your best running back play. Dalvin Cook, this guy, the opportunities are there. So if you look at, I don't want to look at last game for Minnesota because they only played the starters half. But the game before that, I mean, he played 34 to 58 snaps. Still getting a decent amount of opportunities. He just hasn't really done much with them. He's been disappointing this year for sure. He is a bit involved in the passing game. I still have interest in Dalvin Cook, but again, he has not looked like his old self. And then Joe Mixon, 6.8K, I think is a relatively safe play. A guy that, should get a majority of the touches of the running back position. Now, you do have Samaje Perine that has been mixing in. And last game in against the Ravens, Perine went for 30 snaps. Mixon went for 36 snaps. So it was a relatively even split with those two. But I do think Mixon gets more touches. He had 11 carries and 5 catches on 5 targets. So do have interest there in Mixon. Think he's a pretty good play in both formats. Miami running backs, you have Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Relatively even split. If Mostert can't go, then Jeff Wilson becomes a really good play. But early reports are that it's not serious and that he should be able to go. So both Miami backs, I would say, are tournament plays. I expect a relatively even split with those two. So neither are priorities. J.K. Dobbins at 5'7". If Lamar Jackson's out, they're probably going to try to rely on J.K. as much as they can. But he's still not a true bell cow either. Like the Ravens will utilize a couple other running backs as well. So Dobbins, a fine tournament play, but not really involved in the passing game either. The Buffalo running backs. So you got Devin Singletary at 5'5", James Cook at 4.8K. Taking a look at the snaps last week. James Cook outsnapped Singletary 33 to 24. Now, we've seen that once already this year, but we've also seen, the next game Singletary went right back to outsnapping James Cook. So 5.5K for Singletary. He didn't do a ton last week. I think he's a fine tournament play. James Cook might be a bit more popular because he received more snaps and it's cheaper. But again, I think both Bills backs are more GPP only plays for me. Madison will be working as the backup running back to Cook. Again, he had a couple touchdowns last week, but that was with the starters getting rested. So not a ton of interest in him. Perine, he's still seeing snaps. I mean, it's 6-7 touches, but I just think like when you have Perine at 5K, Mixon at 6'8", it's not a big enough gap for me to go to Perine. So if Perine was like the min price, then I think I would consider it, but I would just rather play Mixon for a bit more. Burrito will be the backup, but I'm not really interested in him at that price. Gus Edwards, so he has a concussion. We'll see if he'll be available. If not, then the Ravens have a couple guys that can still go to. Justice Hill could see carries behind Dobbins. I could also go to Kenyon Drake, who played week 18, but was inactive previous week. So if Gus Edwards is out, maybe a couple more snaps for Dobbins, and then probably Hill, Drake mixing in behind him. I think that's it, though. I think that's everyone to cover at running back. Some other wide receiver. Justin Jefferson is at the top at 8.6K. We'll keep it short and sweet. He is a great play in both formats. Not worried about what happened against the Packers. He lit up the Giants 3 weeks ago, went for 34 fantasy points. One of the best receivers in the game, if not the best. So he looks great at the top. Jamar Chase, 8.1K. Also a good option. Also a guy that is a very, very high ceiling. I think I slightly prefer Justin Jefferson to Chase, but you can definitely make the argument to play Chase. You could technically play them both if you want. I think that'll give you a relatively unique lineup. But yeah, I think Jefferson looks a bit better than Tyreek Hill. Kind of depends on the quarterback situation. If it's Tua that is at the quarterback, then I do like Tyreek Hill sub 8K. If it's Skylar Thompson, not so much. If it's Bridgewater, okay. I'm like kind of like in the middle, right? So Tyreek depends on the quarterback play. Who is it gonna be? And Stephon Diggs at 7.7, I think makes for a really good play. Had a great week last week, and I like the matchup. And he's the cheapest of these like top end wide receivers. So do like Diggs a good amount. Jalen Waddle is 6.4K. So that's kind of like your star receivers in the slate, right? You have Justin Jefferson, Chase, Hill, Diggs. Then you get to the mid range. Jalen Waddle 6'4". Again, depends on quarterback play. If it is Tua, then I think Waddle's playable in tournaments. If it's Thompson or Bridgewater, probably going to stay away from Waddle. T. Higgins is 6'2". You're getting a relatively decent discount off of Jamar Chase at 6.2. And T. Higgins still does have a ceiling, so I like him in the mid-range. Another positive with T. Higgins is you're going to get him playing a majority of the game. He played 56 of the 66 snaps, as long as he can stay healthy. Like, he's been banged up a little bit recently, but as long as he stays healthy, I think he's a pretty safe play there. Now, Gabe Davis is more of your boomer bust option. He had 10 targets last week, only 3 catches. So he's seeing a lot of opportunities. We've seen a couple big games from Gabe Davis this year, but he has a low floor. Like, he saw 47 to 59 snaps. So I like his upside. When we saw the big breakout game from him last year in the playoffs, KJ Osborne feels a little bit pricey at 4.6. He had a decent week last week, but he did play while some of the starters rested. So I'd be a little bit careful about Osborne. Now, he is going to play, a lot. He's going to play a lot in the slot, but doesn't really have, the same ceiling as some of these other wide receivers. So I'd be a little bit careful about Osborne there. And then Adam Thielen is 4.5. So for me, I think I'd rather get to Thielen over Osborne. I think we'll see what ownership comes in, and it's too early in the week to see what it's going to be. But for me, I'd rather go to Thielen over Osborne. And then I like these Giants wide receivers a good amount. So Giants, I'm not going to count last week because they actually did the smart thing and, rested their starters in a meaningless game. But the week before that, the Giants are playing 3 wide receivers a majority of the game. Isaiah Hodgins played 51 of the 63 snaps. You saw 52 of the 63 for Slayton and 50 of the 63 for Richie James. So I like all 3. I think the ceiling is probably highest on Darius Slayton. I think your safest play probably is Richie James playing out of the slot, who 7 targets here, 11, 5, 9. So I like him a good amount. And then Isaiah Hodgins also, been relatively productive too. So all 3 of these Giants receivers I like for value, and I think they're playable in both formats. Tyler Boyd, the slot wide receiver for the Bengals, also a decent salary relief option. His snaps did go up last week. He was a bit banged up the week before, but he saw 48 of the 66 snaps. So another, in my opinion, good value. Below that, it gets a little bit tricky. Demarcus Robinson probably will be the wide receiver 1 for Baltimore, but depends on who's their quarterback, right? Sammy Watkins probably being the wide receiver 2. It's really gross of the Ravens wide receivers. Now, Isaiah McKenzie did play as the clear slot wide receiver last week. I know, they had John Brown, Khalil Shakir played a bit, but you still did see 33 of the 59 snaps for McKenzie, and he ran around 27. So I still think he's playable. If you wanted to go to that Josh Allen stack and need a cheap play, I think McKenzie would probably be the guy they would look to. I know John Brown had a touchdown, but I would just rather go to McKenzie, who's playing a lot more. And that's probably it. Sherfield will play the slot wide receiver. Again, depends on the Miami quarterback situation. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to mention here. So let's finish it up with tight end and defense. Tight end, Mark Andrews. Really the only receiving target I feel comfortable with the Ravens. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I still think Mark Andrews would be in play. Obviously, I would like Mark Andrews better if Lamar Jackson's the quarterback, but he's really the only receiving target I trust right now for Baltimore. So again, keep an eye on Lamar news. T.J. Hawkinson, in my opinion, pretty safe play. Last week, and didn't play much, but previous to that, 12 and then 16 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets. He's averaging over 10 targets a game over the last 4 games. So I do like Hawkinson a good amount. I think Dawson Knox is a fair value play. He's kind of in that Isaiah McKenzie range. He'll have opportunities. Is cheap if you needed someone cheap to pair with Josh Allen. Likely had a big game last week. He was someone I did like a good amount. 13 targets, 8 catches, but with Mark Andrews playing, he's more of just a tournament dart thrower. He'll still be out there, but his upside goes way, way down, and Mark Andrews is in there. Mike Gesicki's 3.2. He did play 25 of the 65 snaps. He is their pass-catching tight end. Fine GP play. Hayden Hurst, I think, is pretty safe. He ran played a majority of the snaps last week, 48 of the 66. So I think he's one of these safer, cheap tight end plays, that being Hayden Hurst. Daniel Bellinger, 3K. So not last week, but the week before, he played 56 of the 63 snaps. So another, relatively similar play to Hayden Hurst. Not a super high ceiling guy, but will be out there majority of the games. Hurst, Bellinger, I think, look pretty safe for those reasons. Durham Smythe will see opportunities for Miami, but not going to run a ton of routes. Again, Gesicki more their pass catcher. Smythe played 46 snaps, but only played on 14 passing plays. More out there for blocking purposes. Let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to mention? Quentin Morris is the backup tight end. He ran 9 routes last week for Buffalo, 2.5. I think that's it. Irv Smith from Minnesota. First game. It's kind of hard to figure out what his role is going to be because his first game back was a game that they didn't play the starters much. So maybe Irv Smith mixes in a little bit. He was the tight end 1 before they traded for Hawkinson. And then finally defense. So depends on the quarterbacks, right? If if they're starting Skylar Thompson, the Dolphins, I think the Bills D looks like the best defense. If the Ravens are starting a backup quarterback, you can obviously look to the Bengals defense. So those two will probably be popular if the backup quarterback start. Looking for cheap defense. Don't think I can stomach playing the Dolphins. Ravens defense. I guess the Vikings. Again, I hate talking about defense. I wish they would just remove defense from DraftKings, but fortunately it's part of the game. So that'll wrap it up for the video, guys. If you have been enjoying, just make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Appreciate you guys as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.